In order to calculate the resultant force of a couple of forces acting on a bracket and its angles from the x-axis, we can solve this utilizing a parallelogram law. To do that, first of all, we have to develop our x and y axis and draw both FA and FB on it. Since FA, having a magnitude of 400 pound, is making an angle of 30 degrees with respect to the y-axis, therefore it will make an angle of 60 degrees with respect to the x-axis. Next, our force FB is making an angle of theta with the x-axis in the clockwise direction, and the value of theta is given to us as 60 as well. Now, once we have both the forces, let's go ahead and draw the parallelogram. Drawing a force vector parallel to 500 pound is starting at the head of 400 pound force. Similarly, we also have to create the 400 pound force parallel vector, but this time it will start at the head of 500 pound as shown in the figure. Once we have the parallelogram, the diagonal of it will give us our resultant force. In this case, we are giving it a value of FR. Now, once we have developed that, the angle the diagonal is making is represented as alpha. Next, since internal angles opposite of a parallelogram are equal and the sum of all the internal angles is equals to 360 degree, we can calculate all the internal angles. In this case, since we have 120 at the origin one, similarly opposite to it is also 120 degrees, where the other two angles are equals to 60 degrees. Once we have all the internal angles, we can go ahead and pick one of the triangle and solve it utilizing the cosine law and sine law to figure out the resultant force. So applying the cosine law here, the value of FR will be equals to square root of 400 square plus 500 square negative 2 times the two sides, that is 500 and 400, and the cosine of angle between these two sides, that is 60 degrees. Simplifying, we get our value of FR as 458 pounds. Next, to calculate the angle this resultant force is making with respect to the x-axis, we can apply the sine law, which states that the ratio of a side of a triangle to the sine of angle opposite to that sides are equals to one another. So in this case, our resultant force of 458 divided by sine of 60 degrees is equals to 400 divided by sine of 60 minus alpha. Simplifying, we get the value of alpha as 10.9 degrees. This is the angle our resultant force is making with respect to the x-axis.